Hi, this is Literary Mirror, my new podcast about how the world of literature can provide us with greater insight about ourselves, our lives, and our politics than just reading a newspaper or the daily news on TV. Today, I want to talk about a couple of things. One is the novel Wool by Hugh Howey. We'll talk about Elon Musk and also Jeremy Bentham and his theory of the panopticon, and how all three of those things come together and provide us with more insight into ourselves and our politics by looking at life through the lens of Hugh Howey's novel Wool. I first got the idea of doing this pod when I saw the image of Musk in his tech support, t-shirt emblazoned across the front a couple months ago, and I wanted to do the pod then, but, life happened, got a bit distracted, but I'm back and doing it, and I think the silo society in Hugh Howey's novel Will is a really interesting mirror and way for us to see ourselves a little more clearly, because it's a very stratified society, which is a lot like ours. I mean, we all know when we look at a map of the United States today, or a political map, it's all divided up into red patches and blue patches. And even in our jobs, we're stratified. Our careers are highly specialized. Everything is kind of very divided up, and there's each of these segments of society, whether it's different industries, academia, government, the military, they all have their own vocabularies, their own ways of thinking, their own ways of doing things. And there's often not a lot of cross-pollination between different strata of our societies, because we just increasingly all kind of live together in the same spots. So chances are, if you're in a red state, your neighbors around you are Republicans. If you're in a blue state, chances are the neighbors around you are Democrats, and so on. So when we look at Hugh Howey's novel, we see an even more obvious kind of stratification, where we have people stratified by their occupation, and they even wear a uniform, and they live together. So it's even more stratified than ours. And so in a way, we're able to see what our society will become like if we keep going down the same road of increasing stratification. The other super interesting thing about the silo is how there's a separation of actual and apparent political power. So in the silo, there's IT, who is supposed to just be, like Musk, tech support. And then there's the mayor of the silo, who is democratically elected and who supposedly has all the power and knows what's going on. But and again, huge spoiler alert, when we're talking about Will, and also there's also a popular, I think, Netflix show on called Silo. So if you don't want spoiler alerts, watch that show or read the novel before considering further. But so go back to the silo, the mayor supposedly has all the power, but actually doesn't, because she actually doesn't know how IT is controlling everything through a couple of different things, like having cameras all over the silo, having a breeding program that IT is participating in, where they're actually running a selective breeding program unbeknownst to the population of the silo. And also in the silo system as a whole, there's systematic mass murder of individuals happening in silos that are deemed to be rebellious and irredeemable by the people that have set up this entire silo system. And when we look at Musk's plan, in a way, it's similar to what the IT department in the silo is doing, in that they've created this panopticon where from a single point of control, you can see everything that's going on around you, but the people being viewed from that central point cannot see in to that tower or single point of control. And right now that we see, that's what Musk is doing. Just today, and maybe it was yesterday, we saw that they're now allowing ICE to access Medicaid records of immigrants, and they're kind of linking up all these different nodes of data that the federal government has amassed. And you can just imagine how much data the federal government has amassed over the years. It really is massive, massive amounts of data. So that, I think, is really interesting and gives us an idea that this is not a path you want to keep going down. The other interesting thing is that the communication infrastructure of the silo is not value neutral. And that's similar to our society, where these big email and communication companies like Google are not really there to, of course, provide us with these helpful tools. They're really there to harvest our data. And also they are selectively targeting each of us through what we see. I just read the other day an article on The Atlantic about how online shopping is kind of rigged, in that they're able to show different people with different shopping histories different prices, depending on if they think you're a frugal person or more of a big spender. They will then potentially raise or lower prices. So that is also really interesting, that they apparently seem to be doing that, according to the Atlantic article that I saw. So this is something new for us. And the silo is really interesting because it is, in a way, a kind of panopticon. So the panopticon is a model prison that was originally developed by English philosopher Jeremy Bentham in 1785. And he was a utilitarian who wanted to find a new model for building prisons where you can have less guards, less expense, less resources. And the structure of the panopticon is essentially rings of cells around a central guard tower. So the idea behind that is no one can monitor the guards, and people don't know if the guards are monitoring you or not. So you just have to kind of assume that you're potentially being monitored at any point in time. And that creates a real chilling effect, because right now, I mean, when I walk down the street in my neighborhood, I'm probably being monitored by goodness knows how many Ring cameras, people's cell phones. My cell phone, if I have it on me, is pinging off the cell towers. And in many ways, our daily lives are kind of, in some ways, lived in a panopticon. Not as severe yet and drastic as what it is in Silo, but it's getting there. And with Musk now able to aggregate and cross-reference all of this data from the federal government, it's going to start to feel more and more, I think, like we are living in the silo from Hugh Howey's novel. So the other thing that makes the Trump administration similar to a panopticon is how the oversight is being systematically removed. Inspectors General were fired pretty early on. The CFPB is basically gone. There's no longer a CFPB enforcing federal consumer financial protection laws. The Civil Liberties Board was dismantled. We saw that RFK Jr. just got rid of all the vaccine oversight people and put in his kind of flunkies. So, and the thing with the silo is that it really is about a system of total control, where the project of the silo is to breed a species of, or subspecies of humans that are incurious and completely obedient. And they're running a breeding program where there's a lottery that goes on, and supposedly it's random, but if IT deems you to be too rebellious or curious, you will win the lottery and be able to have children, and then they will schedule you for a procedure to remove your IUD device or contraception device, but that will in fact not be removed. There will be a fake operation, and then people that are too curious or rebellious simply will not be allowed to have children. And the idea behind the silo is, if I remember correctly, from one of the later novels, and I've read the whole series, but it was a couple of years ago, the one lead architect of the silo system says, why travel through space when you can travel through time? And this is really a super long-term project to kind of re-engineer the human race into this docile, easily led, totally incurious kind of herd animal. So that is the project of the silo. I think that's not anything I would certainly want to see happen. There's nothing more important than being curious. There's nothing more important than questioning authority. And the other interesting thing is to look at how else are we like the silo. We need to question today, how is our perceptual field being distorted? If you've seen the show or read the books, you know that one of the main plot points in the novel is that people are sent out of the silo. And just some backstory here. The silo, reason people are in the silo and not allowed to leave is that they live in a apocalyptic world where there's been mass nuclear warfare, and outside the silo is toxic dust or some kind of toxic gas, and if you leave, unless you're suited up in a really good kind of spacesuit, you'll breathe in those toxins and die pretty quickly. So they're supposedly in the silo, kind of like seeds to restart humanity after, say, 1,000 years of generations in the silo, and after the new compliant race of human beings has been born. So, but back to how our perceptual field is being distorted. So people periodically as punishment are sent out of the silo and put to cleaning, which means being suited up in a big suit, sent out to clean the sensors, the exterior sensors outside the silo with a wool pad and some cleaner, and that's, I think, where the title of the novel comes from. It's called Wool. So they sent out there, and they're wearing a helmet, and on the helmet is a visor, and the visor shows a falsely vibrant world. The world is actually dead, gray, dust, and ash. But when they send out, they see vibrant colors, beautiful birds, flowers, trees. And that's all false images shown in their visual field in their visor. And increasingly, I feel like each of us, in some ways, have that type of visor. Showing us false images because of the algorithms used by major web companies, the stratification of our society, and the fact that I just don't think many of us really question ourselves anymore. When was the last time you asked yourself earnestly, seriously, how do I know that what I think is true really is true? How many of us are really willing to go back to first principles and say, I'm willing to admit I'm wrong. I'm willing to think through in a logical way everything I know. I'm willing to really examine what it is I believe in. I don't think a lot of us are doing that. And in some ways, I'm like that too, because I'm also, part of a society that's highly stratified, and to do the work of not being part of the groupthink is something you kind of have to do every day. And it's hard work and it's lonely work, because it's much easier just to go along with what everyone around you is doing when those are the people that share your values. So those are mostly my thoughts on Will, and I wanted to leave you with some words of hope that come out of the novel. Juliet is the heroine of Will, and she figures out that the helmet worn by the people sent out to clean shows an altered reality. How does she do that? As sheriff, she investigates prior cleanings and finds that a prior cleaner had stumbled across code showing how to make false images. So how do the authorities in the silo start to listen to the truth? It seems that what happens is they hear evidence, they're willing to take a risk, and they're willing to speak of forbidden things. So, and that is essentially what happens when, at some point in the novel, when she goes over to the neighboring silo, and there's a scene where I believe it's the deputy sheriff is willing to take a risk, consider what she's saying, and to speak of forbidden things, which is the existence of the silos, going outside, and all these other taboos. So, and also there's a relationship of trust between Juliet and that deputy sheriff. And I don't think he would have been willing to listen to her if there had not already been some level of trust. So the takeaways in terms of what this novel can teach us about how to heal our fractured society is that we need to speak of the forbidden things. What are the sacred cows in your philosophy? And how sacred are they really? Are we willing to speak of forbidden things? Are we willing to listen? Because listening, really listening, is to take a risk. What do we risk when we really listen to other people, when we abandon motivated reasoning? We risk changing our minds. We risk shifting from having an identity as a holder of truth to a seeker of truth. And that's a really big shift right there, is to say, I don't have all the answers. I'm not the holder of truth. I need to seek truth. I need to test. I need to experiment. I need to observe. I need to ask questions. I need to listen. So it really comes down to being willing to be proven wrong. And the question I have for you today is, what would happen if you loosened your grip on a cherished belief? Would you learn something new? Could you learn something truthful? And the other takeaway I have is the image of the cleaners, the people punished by being sent out to clean, the censors outside the silo. Initially, when people are sent out to clean, they dance for joy when they see the false images of the green grass, trees, and birds. But in most parts of the world today, we still have greenery. We still have trees. We still have grass. We have flowers. We have bushes. We have parks. We have wilderness. We have gardens. But we don't see it. We take a lot of that for granted. So the next time you're outside, imagine this is the first time that you're seeing it. Except for us, unlike the cleaners, those colors are true. The beautiful natural world around us is true. It's not false. It's there. We can touch it. We can feel it. We can smell the flowers, feel fresh air in our faces. And I hope that brings you a sense of joy and a renewed determination to protect this world. Because the only way we can really protect things is through our own willingness to be as honest with ourselves as possible. Thank you.